This is TWiT.
So we have a senator who is often in the news because I have to say he's on top of things. He's Oregon's Senator Ron Wyden, and he's probably a pain in the government's rear end, but
yes,
it's a pain that we need him to be. 2 months ago, Ron wrote a letter to the Department of Defense. He addressed it to Dana Deasy, who's the Chief Information Officer, so the CIO at the U.S. Department of Defense at the Pentagon. The letter reads, "Dear Mr. Deasy, I write to ask that you take immediate action to require the adoption of," and get this, I mean, it's hard to believe that this letter it had to be written in the first place, that you take immediate action to require the adoption of cybersecurity best practices on all publicly accessible DoD, Department of Defense, web services. In 2015, right, so 3 years ago, the Office of Management and Budget issued memo M-15-13 requiring all federal agencies to take steps to secure their websites and other web services, including interfaces for automated programmatic interaction, APIs, from cyber attacks. The OMB memo gave agencies, okay, so this was in 2015, gave agencies until the end of 2016 to enable HTTPS encryption and to enforce its use with HTTP strict transport security, that is HSTS, which ensures web browsers will not use insecure protocols when connecting to HSTS-enabled websites. So, in the first place, this is very cool that a senator is knows what this is. Maybe his staff, but at least, but we know from Ron in the past that, he's savvy to this stuff. He then says, in 2017, okay, after the OMB letter of 2015 gave the federal agencies until the end of 2016 to do this, in 2017, Ron writes, the Department of Homeland Security issued Binding Operational Directive, BOD 18-01, reiterating the OMB requirements and requiring civilian agencies to adopt additional forms of basic cyber hygiene. He says a small number of DoD websites, including the Army, Air Force, and national security agencies, NSA, right? Okay, so we would hope, currently implement HTTPS by default, a small number, and use certificates trusted by major web browsers. Unfortunately, many other sites, including the Navy, Marines, and your own office's website at dodcio.defense.gov, either do not secure connections with encryption. Now, this was 2 months ago, right? Deep into 2018. Either do not secure connections with encryption, or get this, only prove their authenticity using a certificate issued by the DoD Root Certificate Authority, which, okay, then he says, I won't editorialize, I'll continue reading, which he says many mainstream web browsers do not consider these DoD certificates trustworthy and issue scary security warnings that users are forced to navigate before accessing the website's information. These challenges do not only impact civilians, service members accessing DoD pages from home regularly encounter security warnings and must click through such errors when accessing public DoD resources. So in other words, to the degree that they did implement TLS encryption and authentication through HTTPS, they did so with some random some random certificate signed by the DoD root that isn't publicly trusted. Unbelievable.
So then what's the point? I'm very surprised that attention to this, and I'm curious why what has motivated Ron Wyden to get so involved with all aspects like this, but surprised that attention hasn't been given to this before. This seems like no-brainer stuff.
I know. And so what happened was this was prompted by Wyden's awareness of what was going to be happening with Chrome. The letter continues, the DoD cannot continue these insecure practices. Starting in July, and we'll be talking about this in a minute, we've been speaking of it before, of course, the Google Chrome browser, and I'll editorialize here, noting that it is the majority browser on the internet, will begin warning visitors of non-HTTPS sites that the requested site is not secure. These warnings will erode the public's trust in the department and its ability to defend against sophisticated cyber threats, or your mother. Okay, he didn't say that. Moreover, the DoD's refusal to implement cybersecurity best practices actively degrades the public's security by teaching users to treat critical security warnings as irrelevant.
That's a really good point.
Normalizing these warnings increases the risk of cybercrime and foreign government hacking as users, both military and civilian, incorporate these dangerous practices reinforced by the DoD into their daily habits. He finishes, DoD has prided itself on cybersecurity leadership, and now is the time to again demonstrate that leadership. I urge you to direct all DoD agencies and offices to take the following. I was going to interrupt myself just saying, everybody else has to take the following 3 concrete steps to improve cybersecurity of their publicly accessible web services. First, adhere to all guidelines specified in that OMB memo M1513 and the subsequent DHS Binding Operational Directive 1801, including enable HTTPS with HSTS on all public web services, facilitate the adoption of HSTS by delivering a list of all public DoD domains, including .mil addresses, to DHS as required by the DHS BOD, obtain and deploy certificates, imagine this, trusted by major web browsers for all web services accessible to the general public, and evaluate the use of shorter-lived machine-generated certificates such as those available at no cost from organizations like Let's Encrypt. There I would argue that if you're going to do this, get your certs from, EV certs from DigiCert, and, go with the best, and you're going to bite the bullet, then inspire as much confidence as possible, because why not? And he says, please provide me an action plan. So this was 2 months ago. This was in May he sent this. So by July 20th, 2018, describing your progress, implementing these steps, and detailing an estimated date by which all publicly accessible DoD web services will implement these cybersecurity best practices. If you have any questions regarding this request, please contact Chris Shogian.
Segoyan, I think.
Segoyan, that's it. Chris Segoyan in my office. So it's significant that Chris is there in Ron's office, or accessible through Ron at least. Mm-hmm. So the good news is they did reply. They said, the DoD did reply last week So around close to, if not by the deadline, saying, quote, "We've been working on it for 2 years, and we plan to have this done by the end of the year."